"We never expected your family could afford anything like this," her voice cut through the chatter. Sharp and disbelief-laden, my cheeks flushed. But I kept my posture straight, quietly noting every sneer. Every glance. Little did anyone know, this moment would mark the beginning of their reckoning. This story is for you, and your one subscribe means the world to me. It keeps me creating stories for women like you, so please hit subscribe and like. It truly helps me continue sharing these journeys. Stay, the reversal lands fast, and I promise, every ounce of patience will be worth it. What would you do in my place? My name is Elizabeth. I am 45 years old. I had spent years building quietly a $75,000 trust fund reserved for my son, careful investments no one suspected, and endless nights planning in silence, often at 3 a.m., making sure everything was perfectly arranged. The rehearsal dinner hummed with polite conversation, but the disdain in their eyes was unmistakable. Every whispered judgment only steeled my resolve, planting the seeds for the truth to emerge. Little did they know, the truth would be revealed soon enough. Their assumptions of my limitations would crumble, revealing not just wealth, but dignity and foresight they could never have imagined. 25 years ago, I found myself navigating life alone after a painful divorce. I was young, determined, and fully aware that the world often judged women like me harshly. Raising my son as a single mother required every ounce of patience, strategy, and resilience I could muster. I worked long hours, often juggling 2 jobs, and yet I made sure he always felt loved and secure. Despite our modest appearance, a tidy home in a quiet neighborhood, a car that was reliable but unremarkable, I quietly built a foundation of financial stability, careful investments, prudent savings, and a discreet inheritance left to me by my late father provided a safety net no one could see. I never flaunted money or status. My focus was always on creating a stable, loving environment for my child. Rumors and assumptions from acquaintances and distant relatives painted a different story. To my son's in-laws, I was a woman who struggled, who couldn't possibly contribute meaningfully, judged by the neatness of my kitchen or the lack of brand names in my wardrobe. Their misconceptions stung, but I refused to react impulsively. Instead, I observed quietly, noting their habits, their arrogance, and their belief that appearances equaled worth. Over the years, this calm vigilance became second nature. I learned when to step forward, when to step back, and when to prepare silently for moments that demanded action. Each decision, each financial maneuver, each quiet triumph built toward the moment when the truth of my competence and foresight would be undeniable. But the seeds of doubt my son's in-laws planted would soon demand proof. Our home may have seemed modest, but every detail was carefully calculated. The mortgage, $850 a month, was managed without delay, leaving room for essentials and a small cushion. College tuition for my son had been covered in full. Thanks to a combination of scholarships and a dedicated savings plan, I had $3,400 in a readily accessible savings account, enough to handle emergencies or unexpected opportunities without anyone realizing it. Beyond that, a $25,000 trust fund had been quietly established in my son's name years ago. It wasn't ostentatious, but it was substantial enough to cover special occasions, educational needs, or even a wedding contribution. My careful planning ensured he would never feel the sting of financial limitation. Every dollar reflected deliberate strategy. While outsiders assumed I lived paycheck to paycheck, I had financial freedom that allowed me to act with discretion and confidence, investments, careful budgeting. And the inheritance I had prudently managed created a stark contrast between perception and reality. These numbers weren't just figures. They were leverage, readiness, and proof of the life I had quietly built, knowing her worth would soon be necessary. "Are you sure you can even contribute to the wedding?" The words hit me like a sudden gust of cold air, spoken by my son's mother-in-law. They carried the weight of judgment in front of half a dozen relatives, friends, and even some wedding staff. The room paused for a heartbeat, watching for my reaction. My cheeks burned, but I stayed seated, smiling politely, hiding the simmering determination beneath calm eyes. As they continued whispering about budgets, helpful suggestions, and what they assumed I could or couldn't afford, I catalogued every insult, every condescending tone, every dismissive glance. I noted the timing, the exact words, the micro-expressions, details I would later use to demonstrate the reality they refused to see. Each comment was fuel, sharpening my awareness and resolve. I reminded myself that appearances could be deceiving. My modest dress, my unassuming manner, and the small gestures they had already judged were merely camouflage. Behind the scenes, I had quietly built financial stability and planned for moments when proof would be undeniable. The pre-wedding dinner became a testing ground, a stage where I would observe, measure, and strategize. She realized that appearances alone wouldn't earn respect. She needed proof. I decided to act quietly but decisively. When the discussion turned to wedding arrangements, I offered to cover the custom floral arrangements. "I'd love to take care of the centerpieces," I said. My voice calm, measured. They blinked at me, clearly surprised. But I smiled and moved forward, leaving no room for argument. Next, I arranged for a reputable caterer, the kind that made each dish feel like a small celebration without drawing attention to costs. The in-laws' mouths opened, as if to protest. But I had anticipated this. I maintained eye contact and refused to waver, communicating that my contributions were neither optional nor a reflection of inadequacy. Transportation became the next subtle statement. I booked a sleek, elegant vehicle for the bridal party, discreetly confirming details directly with the driver to avoid interference. Each action was deliberate, financially significant yet not ostentatious, leaving them unsure how to respond. By taking these steps, I established invisible boundaries. My participation was not up for debate, yet it remained gracious, maternal, and measured. Every choice reinforced a central truth. My worth could not be judged by whispers or assumptions. Calm observation and quiet control were my tools, shaping the environment without confrontation. I could provide, organize, and guide, all while preserving dignity and composure. The in-laws might have assumed passivity, but I was already asserting influence in ways they could neither anticipate nor dismiss. But the in-laws' arrogance only escalated at the weekend family brunch. Their barbed remarks began almost immediately. "You really went all out for the flowers?" my daughter-in-law's mother asked, her voice tight with disbelief. "I hope you're not overextending yourself financially." The comment was loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. A public questioning of my ability to contribute without strain, I smiled politely, sipped my coffee, and allowed the words to roll off me, carefully noting every inflection. Every sideways glance they continued, scrutinizing each gesture, the elegant invitations, the curated dessert table, even my choice of simple yet tasteful jewelry. "Did you really manage this on your own?" one cousin whispered. Clearly expecting a flustered answer, I stayed composed, making mental notes while silently cataloging proof that could be presented later. Every comment revealed their assumptions about my limitations, their belief that appearances dictated capability, and their underestimation of my quiet authority. When they attempted to restrict my involvement on the wedding day, assigning me only minor tasks and insisting I not interfere with planning, I maintained calm resolve. I politely declined the restrictions, suggesting instead my guidance where it would be most useful, without revealing the full extent of my resources. Behind the polite tone, I had already begun to orchestrate the evidence gathering and discreet consultations with allies. I reached out to a trusted bank manager, confirming balances and arranging verifiable documentation for my contributions. A family attorney offered advice on legal measures if my participation was obstructed, and a longtime neighbor shared insights about managing family dynamics publicly. These steps, invisible to the in-laws, strengthened my position. Each move was deliberate, calculated and silent, building toward a moment when my competence and foresight could no longer be doubted. By the end of brunch, the in-laws had revealed their full confidence in their judgments. They laughed at my supposed overreach, whispered about my unexpected generosity, and exchanged smug glances with one another. Yet behind my composed exterior, I was already plotting the sequence of revelations that would leave them speechless. Their mockery had only highlighted the scope for strategic intervention and set the stage for multiple proof props. Financial disclosures and public validation. She knew a decisive revelation was approaching after the brunch. I sought counsel from my most trusted allies, my accountant, who had managed my finances for over 15 years, reviewed every account and confirmed that my funds were in impeccable order. She smiled reassuringly as she ran the numbers aloud. The $3,400 savings, the $25,000 trust fund, and the various investment accounts all confirmed my ability to contribute fully and without strain. Her calm validation reminded me that quiet competence carries more weight than any argument. Next, I turned to my longtime neighbor, someone who had witnessed my journey as a single mother and my careful stewardship of resources. She offered insights into family dynamics and social perception, reminding me that dignity and strategic patience often speak louder than confrontation. With her perspective, I refined the way I would reveal my contributions without appearing boastful. I then scheduled a meeting with the bank manager, who verified my balances and prepared official statements that could be shared if needed. Knowing these documents came from a credible authority added an extra layer of weight to any eventual disclosure. A lawyer was also consulted to draft formal documentation regarding my rights and responsibilities in wedding arrangements, referencing a recent family court precedent that confirmed a parent's entitlement to participate fully in their child's significant events. Each of these allies bolstered my confidence. I felt the invisible power I had quietly maintained become recognized authority, my position validated by professionals whose credibility the in-laws could not ignore. The combination of financial verification, legal backing, and strategic counsel ensured that when the moment came, my actions would be unassailable, with validation in place. She could now prepare evidence for public reckoning. I began assembling every piece of evidence that could quietly yet indisputably prove my worth. Bank statements were the first, clearly showing the $3,400 savings and the $25,000 trust fund, along with steady investment growth over the years. Next, I retrieved the deed to the small but valuable property I had purchased shortly after my divorce, a tangible testament to the careful planning that had gone unnoticed by anyone who judged me superficially. Original receipts for every wedding-related contribution were organized. From the custom floral arrangements to the catering deposits and luxury transportation bookings, I photographed these items, creating a visual timeline of investment and care that even the most skeptical onlookers could follow. Charitable contributions over the past decade were cataloged, demonstrating not only financial competence but moral integrity beyond finances. I uncovered a hidden journal where I had documented parenting decisions, milestones, and lessons learned. Each entry reflected deliberate thought, sacrifice, and strategy, proving that my motherhood had been intentional and deeply conscientious. Photos of lavish investments, from curated artworks to carefully selected furnishings, provided additional layers of validation, contrasting sharply with the in-laws' assumptions of scarcity. All of these items were carefully labeled and stored, ready to be revealed in sequence during the public showdown. Each proof prop was a piece of the story they had refused to see, a quiet rebellion against assumptions. Every document, photo, and note became a tool in my plan to demonstrate competence, dignity, and foresight. Every piece of evidence brought her closer to vindication. I met with my sister-in-law, a quiet but perceptive family member who had always respected my judgment. Over coffee, I shared details of my contributions and intentions, careful to frame them as practical guidance rather than boastful disclosure. Her nods of understanding and quiet admiration reassured me that my financial and moral authority had a witness within the family, someone whose support could be relied upon during the moments when perception mattered most. That same week, I made a mid-sized public gesture that would go largely unnoticed by the in-laws, but still demonstrate my influence. I paid off the final deposit for the wedding venue, ensuring the location was fully secured. The receptionist confirmed receipt and handed me a neat, official document. My actions were understated, leaving the in-laws unaware that I had orchestrated a key component of the wedding. Yet this move quietly set expectations, proving that I was not only capable but also integral to the event's success. This blend of subtle validation and discreet action reinforced my confidence. By quietly confirming both logistical authority and family support, I had created a foundation for the eventual reveal. No one could challenge my competence when the time came. The proof was already documented, verified, and strategically placed. The final confrontation was now inevitable. The rehearsal dinner buzzed with polite conversation. Laughter and clinking glasses, I arrived quietly, my contributions ready but unobtrusive, letting the in-laws assume they still controlled the narrative. The first moment came when our bank manager, introduced casually by a friend, handed over neatly bound statements confirming the $33,400 savings account, the $25,000 trust fund, and additional investments. The documents were presented as routine verification, yet their impact was immediate. Eyes widened, whispers spread. Next, my lawyer stepped forward, confirming my legal rights to participate fully in all wedding arrangements. She referenced a recent family court precedent that supported parental involvement, underlining that no one could limit my contributions without justification. The in-laws shifted in their seats, uneasy as authority validated what they had assumed was irrelevant. I gestured to the arranged floral displays, the catered tables, and the subtle luxury transportation waiting outside. Each element was a testament to careful planning and unseen financial influence. Receipts, deeds, and photos of charitable contributions were casually shared with relatives, ensuring the story unfolded naturally. My $75,000 combined wedding contributions, the $18,000 jewelry gift, and meticulous 3 a.m. planning logs were revealed incrementally, each detail adding credibility without a trace of arrogance. Their expressions hardened, disbelief and embarrassment mingling with attempts to rationalize the evidence. The guests, conversely, watched with quiet admiration, noting the calm dignity with which I orchestrated each detail. Even the wedding staff, who had assumed behind-the-scenes arrangements were minor, recognized the scale and precision of my involvement. The contrast between my composure and their flustered, smug assumptions could not have been clearer. The final gesture involved a simple, understated reveal. I handed over my hidden journal documenting parenting decisions and financial planning, illustrating not only capability but foresight. Comments from extended family drifted across the table. I had no idea. And she's been quietly managing everything all along. The in-laws sat frozen, caught between indignation and acknowledgement. By the end of the evening, the evidence had been delivered in full, yet the tone remained dignified. No shouting, no confrontation, just unassailable proof of competence, generosity, and calm authority. Each observer understood the disparity between perception and reality, the arrogance of judgment replaced by enlightenment. Their disbelief left them speechless, and the room finally acknowledged her true status. Just as I thought the revelations had settled, one of the in-laws scoffed. "These documents are old," she said, voice loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. "Do any of them even matter now?" A ripple of doubt ran through the table, and for a moment, I could see their eyes searching for weakness. I remained calm, a gentle smile in place, from my bag. I retrieved the notarized update my lawyer had prepared, clearly showing current balances, verified contributions, and recent transactions, I laid it on the table, letting the proof speak louder than any argument. The in-laws' faces shifted from smug dismissal to stunned silence, the momentum of their challenge evaporating. No words were needed. Their attempts to undermine me had failed completely. Calm authority, preparation, and documented proof left them utterly defeated, their assumptions of my incapacity crushed in a single, quiet moment of validation. With final validation, the in-laws had no choice but to accept the truth. The wedding day arrived, calm and radiant. With every detail flowing seamlessly, guests marveled at the decor, the food, and the smooth procession, unaware of the quiet orchestration behind the scenes. My contributions, once doubted, once ridiculed, were now evident in every thoughtful detail, from the elegant centerpieces to the luxurious transportation and carefully arranged seating. The in-laws moved through the event cautiously, their earlier arrogance replaced by a tentative respect, grudgingly acknowledging that my planning and support had been essential to the day's success. Family members approached me quietly throughout the event, praising my foresight and composure. "You've managed everything perfectly," one whispered. While another commented on how seamlessly the day had unfolded, I accepted their recognition with quiet gratitude. My calm presence reinforcing that dignity and patience often speak louder than words. Even the wedding staff, who had observed the behind-the-scenes preparations, noted the subtle yet decisive influence I had maintained over every critical detail. Reflecting on the journey, I realized that patience, strategic planning, and quiet authority were my strongest tools. The judgment, the whispers, the casual assumptions of inadequacy, they had all been opportunities to demonstrate competence rather than react with anger. By observing carefully, preparing thoroughly, and acting with composure, I had turned humiliation into vindication. The moment was not about proving wealth alone, but about affirming my dignity, my values, and my role as a mother and a contributor to my son's happiness. By the evening's end, laughter, music, and congratulations filled the room, and even the in-laws' faces had softened. Their recognition, however reluctant, was genuine. They had witnessed the contrast between their assumptions and the reality they had underestimated. My quiet authority had been revealed, leaving no room for dispute or further misjudgment. Finally, the tension that had shadowed the wedding lifted. Looking back, I see clearly that appearances are rarely the full story. What others assumed about me, my modest dress, my quiet manner, my unassuming contributions, was only a fraction of the truth. Integrity, patience, and calm strategy had allowed me to navigate judgment, misperception, and doubt, ultimately revealing my worth without confrontation or spectacle. The lesson extends beyond wealth or planning. It is a reminder that quiet diligence, combined with careful preparation, can turn misjudgment into recognition and humiliation into vindication. I hope women watching this story understand the power of trusting their own judgment, their instincts and their capabilities, even when others doubt them. Planning quietly for inevitable challenges does not diminish humility. It amplifies dignity and ensures that actions speak louder than assumptions. I also learned that intergenerational respect requires both patience and demonstration. By showing competence, foresight, and care, we teach those who follow that appearances are unreliable guides and that true authority is earned through consistent, principled action. Some lessons take a lifetime, others a single decisive moment. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Your time, attention, and support mean more than words can express. If my story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps me continue sharing dignity first, empowering narratives for women navigating judgment, family dynamics, and life's unexpected tests. I would love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever faced assumptions or misjudgments that required quiet strategy and patience? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's create a community where wisdom, composure, and respect are celebrated. May your own life stories be met with dignity and justice.